Hey all, it is the day after the election, and I wanted to do a follow-up video to the first one I did about the futures markets and being allowed the privilege, the right to place a bet on whom one thinks will win the election. And I just want to go over a few important details, because when you look at this election, and I've seen this a few times, I'm not going to say that I know for sure the exact statistics, but all the polling was skewy, and a lot of people had some pretty good ideas. I'm going to put myself in that category. And again, I'm not talking about endorsements. I'm simply saying who will win, who would win, okay? And once again, your predictive markets were successful. There was not much doubt at all about who would win this election in those markets. It was unanimous. And there was one slight hiccup about 4 days before when Trump made some statements about, I think, Puerto Rico. But other than that, before and after that, he was way ahead in those markets. There was not any real question about who would win the election that way. And they were right. Not only did Trump win the election, he also won the popular vote. So I want us to appreciate that if you let's look at democracy in practice, okay? If you take a stupid person and ask them to solve a problem, you're probably going to get a stupid solution to the problem, okay? But guess what? If you take 5 stupid people and you now have the added attribute of consensus, it appears as though you can get some reasonable alternatives. Sometimes a human community has this quality of effervescence. It was first noted, I guess, by Emil Durkheim, the famous anthropology ethnologist in the early 1800s, when he was talking about religion. This idea that the community dynamics of some sort of a worship situation supersede the individual membership of the participants. And this apparently is something we can also look at epistemologically. I never had any doubt about it. I've looked at this quite a bit, and I find it really scary how stupid we're becoming as a society, though. All these people who are supposedly academics, and I have an academic background. I have a master's degree, and I did some PhD work before my firstborn popped out, and completed most of my research for my PhD before that. But there's no rational thinking here. All the information about these markets, the futures markets, related to predicting a candidate, is based on this understanding that the market is in some way skewed. And nobody thinks for a minute about how people, when they have money involved in something, are a little more careful how they place their bets, okay? First of all, I've discussed this in the first video. If you're going to even deal with futures and options, and I can say this to somebody who does to some degree, if you're not smart you're going to get your ass kicked, and you're going to get out of there, and you're not going to come back. Okay? And if you are smart, if you're willing to learn, and if you're willing to start trading, there comes a point you can be hypothetical all you want, but when real money enters the equation, it's always understood that you've got some self-interest, enlightened self-interest at stake, okay? These people who are in these markets, they don't necessarily even care about selecting who the winning candidate is. It's not a heartfelt vote. It's not a vote of confidence. It's simply picking the right candidate for financial gain. And when you profile that behavior, and an individual who's willing to invest a lot of money that skews a market, you best believe that individual has some good information, and that's the reason they're putting that money in. You have all these people who talk about they never got a bad prediction, they've predicted all this. Then you've got these pollsters, and they never really seem to understand. Who even knows? Let me put this to you. Was this a close election? I would say it wasn't at all. Not only did Trump win the popular vote, but the fact remains that it was consistent. There was a precision, okay, to the difference in votes that constituted a winning performance, okay? And the mere fact that that was consistent became sort of an independent variable because, you know, the population of New York State is very different than the population of Rhode Island. A lot of these states, you know, it could be argued that they were settled by, you know, 100,000 votes less or more. But it was consistent throughout that the percentages, the amount of votes differing, the winning from the losing presidential candidate were remarkably consistent, okay? It kind of gives me a little bit of optimism because I don't think we're as divided as a society as some do. You know, there is possible. But on the other hand, that's real interesting to understand the voting dynamics and what constitutes a winning performance, you know, what it tells us about the attitudes of the people who voted and other such things. So it's important to reaffirm the value of these predictive markets, okay? The information is a commodity. Just like if you're the futures traders and the ability to safeguard a resource by having a market that is active and responsive to the performance of that commodity or even a service, and in this case particularly a service, okay, you get good information from these markets, and they were right. They've been right a lot, okay? I have no tolerance for the people who are saying it's bad for the election to have these markets, okay? None at all. It's the only real way that your vote counts probably, okay? I mean, I don't know. I think I'm not totally sold on it. I think there might be some cause for optimism about a vote and if it actually counts. But there's always going to be inequalities. Whether you use the Electoral College or one person, one vote, in either case, somebody's going to get the short end of the stick, if you look at it carefully. And that's probably just the failings of a democratic system in and of itself. Can we actually have a fair system to decide an election where you really have input that is in some way reflective of what people want. I'm a little bit skeptical on that account myself. I do think, though, the predictive markets are a chance to make your vote count in one fashion, and that being financial. And I'll end this here.